All right, we can go ahead and call this meeting to order at 7:07 p.m. I'll start. This board of directors has written and supports a land acknowledgement and anti-racism statement. Both can be found on the board of directors website, on the Sun Valley website. Roll call. I think we're missing anybody. So everybody here, and we can move into adoption of the agenda. Do I have a motion to do that?
Move to adopt the agenda.
Second.
All those in favor? Any opposed? All right. Motion or agenda is adopted. We'll move into the consent agenda. Do we have any objections to the consent agenda? All right, seeing no objections, that passes. Moving into announcements. Does anybody have any announcements?
There's a board vacancy and the notice has gone up and it will be open until the 8th of April.
Any applicants, Linda?
No, haven't heard from staff that there have been any yet.
Don't everybody rush out there in the community.
They usually come in closer to the deadline.
Any other announcements? All right, moving on to property owner comments. Do we have any property owners in the audience who would like to make a comment?
Yeah, we've got about, looks like we have 8 attendees tonight. So if you would like to jump in for property owners comments, just use the raise hand feature in Zoom and I'll bring you over. Looks like everybody's joining from either a PC or via the app. So that feature should be located either at the bottom of the screen, or if you tap the screen on the app, I believe there'll be something on there.
All right, well, they got another chance to speak at the end if they so choose. So we'll move forward for now, and I'll pass it over to Glenn for his general manager's report.
All right, thank you. First thing is, we, as previously promised, we did a after action report for the snow and ice event. So at the end, if you have questions about that, I think overall we did a pretty good job with the cost, considering how many days we did it. And that was one of the things that we highlighted, is finding a way to continue a high level of service while reducing costs. So we'll be looking into those. The next thing on the update is, I want to give you an update on the reserve study RFQ. It closed on Monday. We received 1 proposal. We had outreach to 9. So we'll be taking that through the rest of the way of the process. Joel and I agree it's a good proposal. So we'll be bringing it forward through the finance committee and then ultimately to the board. The only question I have for you to think about is, we lose 30 days by going through that process. As staff, we're totally comfortable going through it, and they feel they can meet our timeline by July 15th, which is a positive because we want to get you the data for you to consider during your budget process. So, so that was good news. Firms out of Bellevue, and we'll provide all that information in the very near future. Wanted to highlight a couple things on new home construction, because that's come up as an issue. Of course, we've had some complaints. We are working on issue resolution with that situation as we speak. Susie and I are both working on it. And we have talked to the resident. But on a bigger picture, we're looking at coordinating with Whatcom County, and we're setting up a meeting with the Water and Sewer District because they've gotten a lot of water and sewer availability requests for our area. So we're going to meet with them in the next week or two and coordinate our efforts on how we handle the new construction. We'll be doing the same with Whatcom County so that we can have a coordinated effort when we're working with our builders. One of the other things that has come up regularly is parking for the construction workers and the subcontractors, interrupting some of the residents and blocking roads. So we're meeting next week to put together a plan on how we're going to coordinate with our builders to make sure that is handled in a positive way without complaints and without interrupting neighborhoods. So more to come on that. When we have a plan together, we will provide it to the board. Next thing is we have our budget process for staff starts March 30th with Joel providing all of us our paperwork to fill out. There are going to be a couple of changes in that, and we will be taking all of the background for that to the April Finance Committee meeting and then on to the board of some of the changes that we're proposing in the budget process, as well as the 2021 budget calendar that is preliminary drafted. So I'd like to give a special thank you to Gail Brightwell. She actually cooked lunch for the entire staff on Wednesday and brought it to us. Everyone loved it. It was fantastic food, and that is something the staff as a whole, we all very much appreciated being appreciated. And that means a lot to us. And I just wanted to thank her very much because I know her effort it's not like we're 3 staff, you know, we're not huge, but we're not small either. And she did a great job and we definitely appreciate it. And then the last thing I have is just to remind everybody, I'm out of the office tomorrow and unavailable tomorrow and Saturday, but I'll be back on emails and available on the phone on Sunday. And you can contact Rachel or Brian if you have anything going on during those 2 days. So with that, I'll take some questions if you have any. Brian, I saw yours go first. Sorry.
I was waiting to be called upon. Hey, Glenn, I just wanted to just commend you and the plow crew and Jacob for doing such a tremendous job plowing. I don't ever remember Goose Ferry behind our house being plowed. You know, our roads generally plowed, but it was, you know, you guys did such a good job. All of the back roads were plowed. Never seen that before. Amazing, you know, so well done. You know.
Yeah, you did a great job.
Yeah.
Linda?
Just a couple of things. On the snow report, it says that the OP23 sander upgrade had a failure because we just bought, I don't know if you can speak to that at all. It's like the first bullet under there.
Yeah, what we actually, that's going to the Finance Committee on the 17th next week. That sander failed, and it's been it's not 100% up, but it's not something that we can fix, so we're asking for a replacement. So what it meant was we need to get when we were debriefing, it was we need to upgrade it because it failed. So that's
I just wondered, we've gotten some new ones in recent years, and I just wondered if it was one of the ones that still should be under warranty or if
No.
it was, but I'll find out during the finance committee because I always try to listen in.
Sure, but no,
Then
it
the
wasn't
other
one of
thing-
them. Go ahead.
Okay. The other question that I had, and it's actually a really pleasant comment. This is an extremely reasonable cost for a snow event. I mean, we had one a while back that was like, what, 90 some $1,000, and this is just a drop in the bucket. Do any of these costs that you have listed here, is it just what's used, or does that also include the replenishment that we probably had to do by using these materials?
No, this is what we actually use. We did replace everything, of course, what we had, but when we came into the storm, we were full. So
Okay.
we just made everything full, and that's what the cost was.
Okay, that works for me.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I would highlight that one of the reasons is because our team was so professional and safe and didn't, I know one of the things that happened in that storm was they had to be towed out by professional wreckers a number of times. And they were very careful this time, did a great job of keeping their speed where it should be, and didn't have any of that. So that's a positive for them. They did a great job with that.
The last thing I was going to say to you, and it had to do with new home starts, and I don't know if there's anybody here. The last couple of years, during close to the start of the construction period, there used to be a meeting that Sudden Valley hosted for, construction companies that might be working here in the valley that might have, be new starts, that sort of stuff. And sometimes the county came and sometimes Wilson Engineering was there. It was kind of a big deal. I don't know if you're planning on doing something like that, as far as making sure that if we've got new construction companies starting in the valley, they're well aware of the rules and regs for the county and water district and everybody else.
Yeah, my understanding was that COVID stopped it last year, but it was ongoing before that.
Yes.
So yes, we have a plan to do something like that, but I would say we're not just going to invite the folks who are new, but all the builders. And the reason we'll do that is because we are going to reinstitute fully our enforcement. And so we want them to be aware that that's coming down the road. And they can never claim that they didn't know. So,
Yeah.
And we also, again, it's not just a hostile thing. We want to partner with them and help them be successful as much as they'll allow us to.
Yeah. Did I also understand that you put out 9 RFQs and you only got 1 response on
we got one proposal. We got 4 responses, I believe. So
Okay.
one of them said they would have been out of our price range, and they kind of knew that because they didn't think they could meet the timeline. So.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. Kim.
Question about the budget process that the staff is going through. Would it be possible for me to get a copy of your timeline for that, or your process for the budgeting? I would be very curious to learn how that process works with staff.
Sure. Actually, when you get the calendar, our calendar is now on your calendar, so you'll see our timelines.
Okay.
And then yes, we will be glad to provide all of the stuff that we're doing to get ready to bring it to you. So absolutely.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I don't see anybody else. So, okay.
I got one question with
Sure.
the snow removal stuff. The baby plow,
Yeah.
is that cost in there yet, or do we not have those costs realized yet?
No, I thought it was in there. Let me double check.
I didn't see anything specifically on the table that,
It's not in there. It's, and I don't know why we didn't put that in there because we knew the cost. I don't have it off the top of my head, but it was over 10 grand for them. I know that it's at least that. So I'll get you that number.
Okay.
And we should have. That's a good catch. That should have been in here.
all I had. Thank you.
Okay.
Do you have any other questions for Glenn?
Thank you.
All right, we will move on to the treasurer's report.
Well, as the treasurer, I am going to hand that over to Joel to go over our December 2020 financial statements and followed by our auditor engagement letter. I think you're on mute, Joel.
Sorry about that. Yeah, thank you. And if any of you have your email open, you probably might have noticed that I just emailed you guys an Excel copy of our 2022 preliminary budget calendar. You guys will take a look at, which also includes, like Glenn talked about, to the right, you'll see like I think a purple kind of shaded region, which is our internal calendar for our deadline to get the ball rolling. Okay, so I'm going to cover the, matter of fact, I'll share the screen here. Can you guys see? It looks like, should look like a balance sheet. Okay, good. Okay, so what you're looking at right here is, obviously I'm going to be talking about the final ending numbers for 2020. So this is December 2020 right here. The balance sheet, this is probably the most boring part in a sense, boring in a good way, because there's nothing really huge on this in terms of, in a bad sort of way, net operating assets are positive. So things are good from that perspective. But one thing I will point out, just in case, this accrued vacation liability amount, actually this amount actually commingles the accrued payroll amount, which actually would be 47,478 right here. So actually, if you subtracted 47,478, put it here, and then drop that amount to 49,780, then that would actually be the amount. But the 97,258 includes both of those in there. Now, I pointed out before last month, so the PPP loan liability, that 357,700, there's the liability portion of it, which is just based, and then the offset to that, the cash asset is up here in this amount, this 702,804. So that amount is combined up in there in operating cash. And then now when we apply for the PPP loan forgiveness, then this 357,700 would then disappear, and it says it would come off. Then on the income statement, it would show up as basically a debt extinguishment gain. I put a memo in the Finance Committee agenda packet, kind of clarifying the PPP loan situation as well. Now, if we basically, so now if we just turn to the next page for the income statement. So now here, what we're looking at is what we ended the year in, which is the most important thing. So your net operational loss right here is so it's a net loss 77,237. Now last year, I'll just talk about what it was this year and then what it was last year, and then I'll give you some other numbers to kind of to make it more like apples to apples to compare this year to last year, like kind of in reality. But so as I mentioned, net income, net loss, operational net loss, 77,237. Last year, it was a gain of, so a net gain, net income operational of 128,717. In terms of total expenses, we were over budget on expenses by about 41,500. Last year, we were over budget on expenses by 296,238 at the end of December 2020. Our collection rate, which we ended out the year, which was pretty good, 95.5% collection rate. Of course, I don't think it's hard to say what it really would have been if you back up into like March during the pandemic when that was really taking hold and we had to close everything for a while. So in comparison, at the end of December 2019, it was 97.3%. So this year, at the end of December 2020, we finished 95.5%. So that's definitely encouraging. Now, I've already worked the collection rates for January, what it is at the end of January 2021. And so we finished out the month for January of 86.7%. And now keep in mind, January is historically always the lowest collection rate for Sudden Valley. So we finished January 2021 at 86.7%. Last year at January 2020, we finished at 86.5%. So we're actually even ticking a couple tenths of a percent better than where we were last year in January, which is an encouraging sign as well. In terms of, now I always mention too the expense to revenue ratio, which is just basically what are the expenses in terms of the revenues as on a percentage wise. Lower number is obviously always better in this case. So at the end of 2020, we were at 102% expense to revenue ratio. Last month we were at, and you're going to be over 100% anytime you're tracking a net loss. Last month we didn't have a net loss, so we were at 98%. November, now the year before, since we finished out at a gain, we were 97%. Now in terms of like kind of comparing 2020 to 2019, so keep in mind to have a $77,237 net loss in 2020, keep in mind in April, we waived dues in April. Now at a 92% collection rate, if we had not waived those dues, then this would be a $122,000 gain at the end of December. And that's at 92%. Now, if I figure what it would have been at 95.5% on average for April, then we would have about $130,000 net gain. Also keep in mind too, in 2019, we had $128,717 net gain at the end of 2019, but we had about $94,600 of snow removal expenses in 2019 that were paid out of UDR. So if you actually took that $128,700 gain and in a sense made operations pay for it, so to speak, like what we did in 2020, it would have reduced 2019's gain down to only $34,000. So this year, the snow removal expense, which was approximately $92,000 or so, maintenance shouldered all of it in 2020. So maintenance paid for it through operational expenses. Nothing was transferred out of UDR for that case. So those are kind of some numbers to keep in mind when you're really trying to compare like 2020 to 2019. Now the next page in your packet, which talks about it's basically a snapshot of what you're looking at here, all your capital reserve funds, capital operating reserve funds. And like I said before, this is literally just a function of starting balance of where your cash was at the end of 2019, this top row, and then the dues, cash coming in, just other stuff like investment income, 2020 expenditures. Now expenditures meaning stuff that was paid for, capital projects, any other expenditures related to capital. And then that's what gives you the ending cash at 12/31/2020. So like, for example, this amount, 1,688,889, you could go right back to the balance sheet and you could see there's that amount right there, ending for CERT. So, and you could do that for any one of those funds with this major bolded line down here. Now these two, you're going to see, so there's 332,492 for UDR. You would just look up here in the operational section, there's 332,492 for UDR. So that's how you can trace those back to the balance sheet, because those will tie back. And these amounts up here would tie to the column next to it for the 2019 ended column. And then down here, basically the main expenses that'll come out of here, like this 225,262 for SERP, this is everything that's obligated. So what the board has approved, capital projects, invoice. So basically well, I'll just show you. So 225,262. And if I scroll down to, because I know this page is in here, actually. Let me find it. Here we go. Here's the SERP sheet. So basically, this is what is also in the finance packet. So this is basically just showing you everything that the board has approved. The board approved the budgets here, what the board has approved, and then what's all been invoiced, and then what's left over, what has not yet been invoiced or spent, is this amount, this 225,262, and then that literally gets plugged in right here on SERP as the major expenditure. And the same thing, you could do the same thing for roads and the same thing for UDR. So this is just a function of how much cash is coming in versus how much you're planning to go out. And then you have the board recommended carryover balances down here. Then this would give you, roughly about what you'd be looking at taking the board recommended carryover balances, what you would have kind of that you could spend, so to speak, or that you could plan on spending. Now at this point, so turning the page, now we're looking at the current month for December 2020. Of course, at this point, now that we have the whole year, I'm almost kind of a little tempted just to skip to the year today, but I'll just, what the heck, I'll just talk about golf anyways on here, since I always mention it. But actually, so current month only for the month for December, you're looking at $21,014 golf revenue. Last year at this time for the month, they had $24,496, decrease about $3,500. Golf expenditures. So the expenditures is always this actual salary benefits column right here, and then the actual other expenses right here. This plus this gives you the total expenditure for the department. They had $78,649 total. Last year they had $57,117. Actually, so increase of expenditures $21,532. But actually, the good thing is now that we're on this page, so salary and benefits, you'll notice some of these numbers look like they're over budget, they're higher. That's because at the end of the year, what I do is it's the one time that I'll do this, that I accrue for. So for example, I take the first payroll in January, and then I look at that and then calculate how much of that payroll really pertained to 2020, and then I end up kicking that expense back into 2020. So that's why you'll see at the end of the year, you'll see some departments that look like they're over budget, but that's really only because I've accrued for 2020 expenditures for payroll that got paid out in January. Now in January, you'll see kind of the opposite effect. You'll see where January's payroll numbers look a little lower, but it's for the exact opposite reason. And the two kind of balance themselves out throughout the year. So the same sort of thing happened in 2020. So the January payroll in 2020 looked lower, and now you're seeing where it kind of, the other end of it is kicking in, where it looks a little higher. But that's because of accruing expenses for year end, for accounting purposes, basically. Now, net income loss for golf. So they had 57,635 loss. Last year they had a loss of 32,061, which means they had $25,000 lower net income for December. Now, some of this, of course, will be a function of accrued payroll and such. The real important thing at this point is if we go to now I'm looking at the same statement, which is the next page, but now we're looking at this on a year-to-date basis for all of 2020 for all the departments. And at this point, for the whole year, this is really how you would look at it at this point. So for golf, again, so they had 923,897 of revenue right here. Last year, they had 908,227. So they gained about $15,500 in revenue, which is good given the fact that golf was closed down during that mandatory shutdown back around March. They had total expenditures for golf for the year, 869,600. Last year in 2019, they had 898,382. So decrease in expenditures of about close to 29,000. Net income for golf for the year, 54,281. Last year they had a net income of 9,845. So they actually were $44,436 higher net income wise compared to 2019. Now the big departments that you would see right here in terms of like for something that was overexpended in terms is maintenance for 137,060. Now keep in mind, last year in 2019, approximately 94,600 was transferred out of UDR to pay for snow removal. And then this year for maintenance, about 92,000 or so, only related to weather response type stuff. In 2020, none of that was paid out of UDR. It was all paid out of as an operational expense out of maintenance. So this is pretty much your one big variance for maintenance. You'll also see it, probably the only other variance, real notable one for admin, 41,170. About half of that was just related to, like spending on stuff like Express and things like that, which they didn't have a budget for it. So they had about 20-some thousand that went to other professional services that didn't have a budget, which naturally makes 20,000 of this overexpended line item right here. The other amount was, the other amount was just essentially paying like to HR kind of October, November, December. The prior HR manager was paid out for those months, and Rachel was here at the same time, which basically triggers kind of the rest of that difference, if you were curious on that. Now, any of these statements will tie right back to the income statement. So there's the 77,237 that I talked about. And so all of these will tie literally right back to it. I think those are pretty much the major highlights on the December financial statements. If anyone had any questions.
Me.
Linda?
Okay, here we go. The balance sheet. So we have $702,804 as of December 31st. That I assume includes, as you pointed out, the $357,700 for the PPP. Does that also include the EIDL money?
Oh yeah, the
That 10,000 that we got?
Sure, yeah.
So our real income without this extra money, and I know it's all money, but we've only had like 335,000 in there then. I just wanted to make that clear because it's kind of like this is sort of like found money. And I was just curious. Could you tell me again? I think I asked you once before on the balance sheet under capital current assets. There's an amount of money that's called member receivables capital. And in 2019, there was 16,000 in there. And in 2020, there's now almost 29,000 in there. Why, if it's member receivables, isn't it going into one of the reserves?
Well, this is the receivable portion. This is dues. So basically how we do this is during the year, we, in a sense, for bad debt reserves, anything that's more than 30 days or over, we just write it off, in a sense. It goes right to bad debt expense. With the exception, the one time that we don't do this is at the end of the year, where we pull it in line with GAAP principles. So basically anything that's going to be like essentially 90 days or less in terms of dues that are owed to us, I unwrite them off, so to speak. I undo that as bad debt expense just to get it according to GAAP for our audited financial statements. So this amount of dues,
Okay.
this is only related to the roads, SURF mailbox portion of the dues. And then you'll see the other amount,
Yep.
this right here. There's the operating portion of the dues.
Yep. Okay.
And to answer
I've
your
always seen it there, but I never understood what happened down in Capitol
Oh,
here.
yeah.
And I can remember asking before, but I get it and understand.
And
So
that's-
my next question,
Oh,
go
just
ahead.
say, Linda, in case you're curious too. So like in January, you'll also notice these amounts zero right out again, because then they get written off again until the end of 2021, where I'll do the same thing.
Yeah, okay. It was just to understand where it came from and what it represents. Also then on the under fixed assets, we've got the lots held for sale. We have a 215,484. I thought when I was looking at the GL, we only have like 2 lots left that we're
Yeah, but
holding.
okay, this is related to at the end of the year. So this happened pretty recently in terms of for me booking. There were some properties that basically foreclosure judgment on the properties where we were
Okay,
bidders, so to speak. So that's where that difference is showing up.
then
So
the last, go ahead.
three more properties, and a couple of those are like combined lots also.
Okay, I just was wondering, because it's just, we're getting to where we have no lots, and it's
Yeah.
like, we have this big number. It's like, well, wait a minute here.
Yeah.
So the other thing that I've noticed in member equity, and I think I don't know if we're all aware of this, or if I'm wrong, you just tell me. I have no trouble with this. Under the net income for the special assessment, we should really be, I know you show it as a difference between the 2 years, but because we carry over any profit that they have, so to speak, or unspent, that actually increases, and there's actually a positive 82,162 in there. Because
Yeah.
last year they had 23,605, and now this year the 58. And it's just, I think we need to stay on top of that. You know, so many people have asked with the gym being closed and stuff, and where's their money going? And it looks like all we have is that 58, but it's actually a somewhere we need to be combining those numbers, because we're not really showing that to anyone anywhere. It just concerns me.
Yeah. So basically, how these numbers that you're looking at right here
Yep.
will only relate to the current year. In this case, 2020, for the segment of income that's related to operations and special assessments, and then where it gets captured is going to be down here in retained earnings. So that's where it's going to like roll forward throughout the years.
Okay, it's just that's such a big number that you don't know where you're getting that from, and I just want to make sure, by the time we get to the end of that special assessment, we're going to be in the middle of a year, and if they keep working within budget, and we collect above or at least at whatever our collection amount is every year, you're going to have extra money in there, and it may help us get through that final year, because I believe the year that it ends, it only runs through May, the actual assessment itself.
I believe so. Yeah.
I'm just
Another thing too, Linda. So like if you took this amount right here and then added these 2 amounts together, then it becomes this. So like rolls forward to the next year. But yeah, in terms and then in the retained earnings, we do track also like the special assessment category of it as well in retained earnings. So in income of the rec special assessment amount gets into the retained earnings and is tracked as well that way.
Okay, it's kind of nowhere where we show everyone, and it's like we're changing boards all the time. And I don't know that with different people on there, they realize, hey, they've got more than the 50 some thousand, they've got more like 80, and that's a big difference.
Yeah.
That's just hanging around in there. That's money that sooner or later will have to be spent or redistributed, but everybody's got to be aware of it, that's all.
Uh-huh.
Okay, then I'm gonna, just a minute, I've got, so on the reserve cash balance activity, why is there such a huge amount? I looked and there's not a really good description in the GL. There's $38,603 out of there. And normally that's only on lots. What did we spend a whole bunch of money to acquire a bunch of lots?
Yeah, what this is 38,603. Of course, this is going to be kind of a little, it's getting a little into the, for me, into the weeds a little accounting wise, which might sound a little boring. But basically, when we took over those lots, you have a portion of the dues that relate to operations, and then a portion of the dues that relate to roads, SURF, mailboxes. So then in a sense, it's almost kind of like I take the revenue that they owe us, so to speak, and then we swapped it for land. So then what I'm doing here is I'm taking this amount and I'm essentially paying back SURF, roads, mailbox, and operations for these lots. Because when we sell these lots that we took in, all this money is going to come back in here to board density reduction. So then that's where it all falls back in again.
And we took those all in December?
It actually cleared basically in December 20, December 20, 2020, actually.
Wow. I'm just saying, I don't think the board ever heard about any of this.
Well,
I guess I'll ask AJ if we took up, that's some serious money that we're taking out of the UDR. Without, at least to my knowledge, the board never knew about it.
Like when, no, not out of UDR, you mean the board density reduction?
I mean, out of board density. That's huge.
Yeah. So like whenever we sell these lots, any lots that we have and we sell them, all the money comes right back into this board density reduction account right here.
Oh yeah, I understand that. I'm just saying, how many lots did we take back that account for $38,000 worth of?
3 of them, meaning 3.
Only 3?
But some of these lots are combined. So like 3 lots became 1 lot. And so it's more, off the top of my head, it could be even like 6 lots or so.
It is 6.
Yeah, 6 lots.
Huh. I always thought that had to be approved by the board because it's money that gets expended out of a reserve. That's all. I'll do an information request on that.
I mean, some of this, like for example, some of this went to SURF, some went to roads, some went to mailboxes, and then some went to UDR.
Oh, I understand that. I'm just saying that the big hit gets taken out of the density reduction, out of the density reduction. And I realize we get the money back. I'm just saying, normally if we agree to take stuff back and it's going to be a real cost to the association, I always thought that had to be approved by the board. That's all.
Yeah, and like the cost in terms of, obviously this all went through the attorneys and stuff like this. This was a long process, for this foreclosure judgment sale thing on these properties. But the money itself is this money here. Basically what we swapped, in a sense, is you could think of, we swapped a dues receivable for land in this case is what we did.
Yeah, I understand.
And then the money here, this 38,603, the money didn't leave Sudden Valley. It just went to SURF, roads, mailboxes, UDR. And then when we sell
I saw that in the GL. I followed it all around. It's just, I didn't see anywhere that you showed the taxes that we pay, because normally that's a normal outlay. That's just the taxes on our lots that we have, which isn't much, but I don't see that anywhere in there unless it's part of this 38,603. I'll maybe do an information request.
No, we have a couple. So like the 38,603 wasn't like the whole thing. So
Okay,
you will see a little of property taxes come out of this as well for
okay.
certain lots that we have that we're holding.
The last question I have for you has to do with the final sheet about the, how do I say it? How many billable lots we have? We had a big jump at the end of, in December, on the total billable lots. Is that because Gil moved over completed bills and stuff? Because we went from 2668 developed lots in November to 2678 developed lots in December. And I just wondered if Gil moved some of those houses that have finished, or what caused the jump.
So you're saying now what column were you talking
Okay,
about?
if I look in November under total billable lots on that sheet,
Uh-huh.
it was 2,668. If I look in December, there's 10 more lots there that are developed. Are those houses that were vacant that are now got completed, so they've been moved over into developed lots?
Well, they must be, because see this right here, this vacant 469 in November.
Yep.
And in December, the vacant drops to 458.
Yeah, I'm just trying to understand what was done that may, and I understand, because I'm assuming then they get, then in January, Gil can start billing for a developed lot rather than a vacant lot.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah. And the total lots, as you see, literally didn't change by that much.
Yeah, I understand that. I just,
Yeah.
whenever I watch it, I guess, because I'm used to looking at things. People ask me about how many, developed lots we have and voting and all that sort of stuff. So I look at a lot of that. So that's my only question.
Okay.
Okay, that's it
All
from
right.
me.
Any other questions for Joel on the financials?
So Joel, this is Stephanie. So the vacant lots went down by 11. Shouldn't they go down by 10? Because the completed lots went up by 10. So shouldn't the vacant lots decrease by 10? They decreased by 11.
Let's see here.
Actually, if you look at the total number, it went down by 1, which to me
Yeah.
would say that we had a combined lot.
And right. And because we do get, because I think there was a combined lot that happened.
Yeah, it looks like there was a consolidation.
Okay, good. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
All right, any other questions? Okay, we can move on to the next thing. I'm not sure if Joel or Glenn was planning on presenting the auditor engagement letter.
I might as well do this, unless you wanted to, Glenn.
It's all you.
So, okay, now this one is pretty cut and dried. We put this to the Finance Committee last month, and all this is doing is just asking for the board's approval for us to be able to sign the 2020, or this is going to be the audit for the 2020 financial statement audit, and also the 2020 tax return. And so the audit and tax fees on the engagement letter, 28,000. You won't see a fee on the tax letter. You'll see it on the engagement letter, 28,000. And looking back at the proposal bid that Larson Gross gave us, it was 28,000 that they did indeed bid us for the year 2020 for both of those elements, the financial audit and the tax return, the federal tax return. And so basically, if the board okays this, then we can get the engagement letter signed. Then that can get us on Larson Gross's docket nice and early, I believe, this year.
Do we have a date from them, Joel, at all? A guesstimate?
Oh, a guesstimate. Well, in terms of like, because I've talked to the auditor, and we're shooting for a possibility of maybe starting field work even during the month of April at some point.
Okay, good.
Anybody have any questions on the audit engagement letter? Finance committee did go over this at their last meeting. And I also had the audit committee look at it too. Everyone feeling comfortable moving forward with Larson Gross again for another year. And then I think I've talked to Glenn. He's kind of been pushing the every 2 years, re-advertising and getting competitive bidding. So next year would be the year for that. I think we can just make a motion to allow Glenn to sign the contract for us.
I think Joel does. No, yes, who signs?
Glenn would be fine to sign.
Okay,
In the past, of course, I've had a board member sign, but it would be perfectly fine for Glenn to sign that as well. I'll let Glenn take the heat. Something goes
I'm
wrong.
just concerned since, if this, and maybe by August, we'll still, Glenn will still, we won't have a regular general manager. That's my only concern. Is that he's interim.
Well, if we don't have any further questions, I think we could make a motion. I'll move that the board approve Glenn Akramov to execute the engagement letter with Larson Gross as the auditor for the 2020 audit.
Second.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Actually, Joel, can you stop sharing your screen?
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
A lot easier to see when everyone's in a line and not showing.
Here we go. Sorry
All
about
right. All those in favor again? Any opposed? All right. That is a done deal then. All right, we can move on to continuing business then. Or do we need to make a motion to sign the tax thing separately? Might need to, I suppose, since it's a different signature.
Yeah, it is 2 different documents.
All right. I move that the board approve Glenn Akramov to execute the 2020 tax engagement letter with Larson Gross.
Second.
All right. Any discussion on that? All right. We'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Passes unanimously. All right. So moving on then to continuing business. I don't have a lot for the strategic planning session update. I believe Glenn sent out an email to a few people who still need to sign up for tours. So if any of the board members haven't done that yet, please sign up with Glenn. It sounds like we filled our weekday slots, which is excellent. Thank you everyone who was able to make that happen. That's definitely helpful for staff so they can be doing it during working hours. And then I think we have 2 additional weekend days that we are going to run.
Yeah, and if you can make a weekday and want to, we can still fit that in. So the 20th, 21st, and 24th are all open if you need to.
And then, yeah, I'm working on getting all the chat and all of our work put together with some follow-up package, and I should have that shortly. Other than that, I don't really have much. Me and Glenn were talking about utilizing the long-range planning committee meeting this month, which would be the 4th Tuesday, to finish our mission, vision, values discussions. The planning team kind of discussed maybe having a shorter evening session, and then the main strategy and goals discussions would be kind of another longer session, and we could talk about how long we want those sessions to be, based on some of the feedback we got from the little survey that we did. Some people felt like maybe we went like an hour too long. People started to get kind of burnt out and stuff. So my plan was to send out an email here to everybody to try to gauge people's availability for that 4th Tuesday evening.
So it'd be like a normal long-range planning committee meeting with a lot of guests.
Yep, basically. And then we could, kind of wrap up and revisit everything we did. Some of the worksheets that we have are going to kind of have you guys think about this stuff independently a little bit in between the meetings, and kind of, circle back and, see how your personal experiences and vision match up with what we created as a group. And, this is kind of something that will be revisited throughout the planning process, for sure. It's kind of the foundational element of everything. So even as we go through the other steps, we'll be continuously tying it back to, our vision and our values. So yeah. If there's any questions, I can answer them, or, we can do it via email as well too. All right, well, we can move on to new business then. And I think I'm turning it over to Susie here for the Earthworks contract.
Hi, guys. Thank you so much for having me here tonight.
Susie?
Hi.
Okay. Hi. So I've never done one of these before. I've never done one of these before. Would you like me to just read this? Is that the name of the game? Yeah. Okay.
Just summarize it, Susie.
Okay.
Just summarize what you are asking for.
Okay, so this is pretty much a dedicated contract between us and Earthworks for tree arborist services. Sudden Valley has not had a dedicated service provider for trees in a very long time. And you can tell by looking at the trees in the valley, we have a lot of work to do to get things up to standard. And this gets us a way better price on getting that done. One of the biggest issues has been the fact that we have been bidding out trees in small groups or one by one in the past, which is incredibly time consuming. I'm very happy to maybe be done with that. This also allows us to get to emergency work and after storm cleanups much faster. They don't anticipate for emergency work ever taking longer than, they say, 24 hours. So I'm really hoping that this makes a big difference for the valley. We took down a tree earlier this week that was a huge tree. It should have been down a long time ago. These are the things on my mind. And I hope if you have any questions, you'll ask me.
Well,
I wanted to, Susie was mentioning that large tree. Susie, could you tell us more about that tree and the issues with that tree?
It was actually completely rotten. If we had had it trimmed a few years ago, it would have been less than $5,000. But because of the fact that they had to bring in a crane, it was over 14,000. If we had had to pay normal prices for that. Luckily, we're going to be getting a deal, and hopefully also getting a deal from them in the future. But trees like that are scary. They're scary for everybody. And if I could get through the hazard tree list, I would feel a lot better about things.
I just want to
And-
also say that I remember you saying, Susie, that the guys didn't even feel comfortable climbing the tree.
Correct. Mm-hmm.
That's how dangerous it was.
all right. Linda, then Kim.
So with Earthworks, I'm assuming not only are they're going to provide arborist services, tree removal services if we need them, etc. Correct?
Correct.
I've taken a look at the list of danger trees
Mm-hmm.
and where they're at, and on those lists, some of those trees are they're not real hazardous, but they're supposed to be reviewed every so often.
Mm-hmm.
Are they going to do that kind of work too, or is that you're going to do that in-house, or?
Yes. So if we need a full arborist report, we'll be getting those for a great discount. He also has connections at the county that allow him to get permits through much faster, which is pretty great. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the work you have to have for a tree removed is just nuts with the county.
And they do plan to have a four-man crew in the valley 4 days a week, and the equipment will be located in Sudden Valley. Part of the reason I wanted to go with them is because they have a brand new truck, a brand new chipper, and a brand new 75-foot bucket truck that is all capable of being here in the valley for us. I believe that Jacob will be bringing up that bucket truck to you guys at a different time.
Okay. Sounds like a plan. Thank you.
Kim?
So, yeah, I was going to ask, hi, Susie, nice to meet you.
Hi.
I'm Kim. And do you know who we contracted with before, or was it just sporadic contractors?
It was sporadic, and that's part of the reason that we don't have a good continual maintenance system here for the trees.
Okay. And then for the bidding process, did you bid or look for 3 bids?
Yes.
And then you ended up with Earthworks?
Yes, I actually spoke to 5 companies. None of them had the same equipment available nor the same manpower available. It also helps that there are members of the Earthworks crew that are here in Sudden Valley. I actually have a really cool app where I can track where they are in the valley every day. So that's also really neat.
Okay. Thank you.
Steffi and then Noelle again.
Hi, Susie. Thank you. I want to thank you for presenting and actually doing the footwork on that. That's huge because in the past, I have sat and listened to that, we used like 2 and 3 different tree removal services because we just kind of pieced around bids, or maybe if we did 2 and 3 trees, that would be better price. But this is really proactive, and I'm really happy about this because this is something that looks to me like we're just going to be working on continually. And one of our questions, amongst a group of us, just when we're throwing it around, like, what do we do about this? Or, this is one of the solutions, is to be more proactive. It's like, well, we're just going to have to get ahead of these things. It's like,
Absolutely.
when people complain, when people complain, that's what I ask. Okay, well, what do you think the solution is? And people will say, we have to get ahead of this, And so that is, I really do appreciate that. And Earthworks is very reputable in the construction world. So
Yes.
that is important
They're also,
too.
they're very scientific. They really care about the health of the land and the trees. They've told me before that they have a policy where they try to never take down healthy trees. They try to always have reports on things, have everything documented, properly done. Their connections at the county are going to be a huge help. It also helps, and this was Jacob's idea, that we will be IDing the trees by ID number with specific tags that we've already had made. I already have them. And that way we will track the trees from when we first tag them to when they get their arborist reports, when they get their permits, when they go to invoicing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is huge. This is, and I mean, this is that reputation of Sudden Valley that we want to protect too. So thank you.
No problem.
I would just like to point out for everyone that this is a, an operations contract, not a capital contract as well. So. Is there any more discussion on the contract? Noel?
I just want to say how impressed I am with Susie and her ideas and her being on top of this and us getting ahead of this issue with all of our hazardous trees that have been neglected for so many years.
Thank you. I
I'm-
appreciate that.
I'm just, yeah, really, I have no words.
Earthworks, by the way, is willing to talk to any community members, do Zoom meetings, do any type of meetings to explain situations to the residents of Sudden Valley, which I think will be very helpful.
Yeah, and I've spoken to Christopher on a couple times, and he's so knowledgeable and so willing to talk to you and explain things to you also. He's just really a really good person. Resource.
All right. Well, I definitely think the community will appreciate a proactive approach to tree management. I think it's something they've definitely been asking for a while. I think this is a great start, and I think we got some more work to do yet, but I think we're going to get there. Kim?
One last question. So there's, for the motion you're going to present, there's no cost associated with having them on contract, right? Anything that they do would just go to be run through finance and then the board for future work, right?
Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
No, I don't think that's accurate. It's an operations contract, so it will not come back before the board. Glenn will be responsible for managing it. But that does bring up a good point. We probably should have a maximum amount payable over the 2-year contract.
So what I would say is the maximum allowable for us is the amount that's budgeted for this year.
Mhm.
And so next year, if the budget goes up and we get that approved through you, then that would be the maximum allowable. And I believe, at least I looked at it today, and I think it's 60,000 for 2021. If we do need to go over it, we will let you know that might need to happen for safety reasons, but we would come back to you if we are headed over that for sure for approval.
I just feel like there's a financial component then that should be on here, whether it's a maximum amount. Something should be there numerically. It just feels like it's missing.
Noel.
Sorry.
Okay.
Reading. My bad.
No, that's good. No, that's all good. Just wait. But don't we have a tree budget?
Yes, that's Noel, we do. It's like
Right. And
60,000.
so whatever trees that we take down, Susie, correct me if I'm wrong, it's coming out of that budget, our tree budget.
Once that's gone, we have to ask for more. That's the way it's been explained to me.
Yes, and then you would come, then they would come to the finance committee with a specific probably list of trees and also the amount of money that was over that it would cost to have them, you know, an arborist or whatever taken down. That's been done in the past.
So how about fill out the financial part with what the maximum amount of that budget is, just so that there's something there concrete.
It's 60,000. So you can, if you put that in your motion, you'll be fine.
Is it 60,000 exactly? Is Joel still on?
Has any of that been used?
Some, yes.
How about if we say not to exceed budgeted amount for tree removal?
Or would it be based on what's left currently?
Yeah.
Well, not to exceed.
The yearly base budgeted amount for hazard tree removal.
Mhm.
Then
Right, but if we're gonna make this a motion now, that should be what's currently left, right? Since this is all going to be with Earthworks.
Then you'd have to have current financials.
Right.
Oh, no.
Sorry,
And we'd
I'm not
never
trying to
get
make this
there.
complicated.
So you can put whatever you want in there, but we cannot, and I will tell you, we will not exceed 60,000 in billable without coming back to you, because that's the only amount you approved, and I don't have the authority to go any higher than that. So if you said as was suggested, the maximum amount, that means, or just a maximum amount remaining, I can't go over 60, we will not.
Brian?
I just was wondering how much it's been woefully, it sounds like our tree policy has been woefully inadequate for some time, right? That's one of the gist of this conversation.
Hey, Brian, I think the last time I looked at something, we hadn't even spent all of our money on hazard tree removal. I think it's either 19 or 20. We hadn't even spent it all, because I talked to Jake about this.
In 2020, we had a surplus. We did not spend $17,000 of the tree fund. Yeah.
Okay.
Actually,
So that was my question, like how much did we spend last year? So chances are we probably won't hit that budgeted amount this year.
Oh yes, we will this year.
Oh, you think? Okay.
Guarantee it.
All right.
Yeah, because we need to. So in order to get ahead of things. So that's.
Yeah, things seem really messy. Yeah.
Yeah, we've just been grabbing trees that are about to fall.
Yeah.
And obviously, every winter when there's Right. And it's like every winter, it seems like we miss a few, because one went through my roof a couple of years ago.
Our neighbors are getting work done right now from this type of
So I'm like, so we are going to spend that. If this passes, I would say that we as an association are spending that and hoping for more, but just, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But just looking. But yeah, I think they intend on spending it.
Yeah, I think we should use the statement of the not to exceed the annual budgeted amount without further board approval.
That's adequate.
Joel?
What we do for any other budgeted item that's ops.
Sort of a two-part question. Have we used these guys for our per tree work in the past, or kind of?
Yes.
Lots.
Okay. That answers my second question. And I'm just kind of, I'm only asking because I'm a nerd, but do you know roughly, or would you be able to estimate what, how much time you spend, whether it's 15 minutes, half an hour, whatever, dealing with the per tree thing? I just always like to see
for bidding it out.
Yeah, per tree, how much. It's nice to see how much we're saving.
Sure.
If we are spending that money, we're spending it on trees and not on somebody getting bids per tree.
Yeah, it definitely takes, it's a matter, the biggest problem with the bidding is that it's sequential with other actions from other companies. So I have to ask for the bid. I have to wait for them to go out. I have to wait for them to tell me what they all differently think about it. You're looking at weeks of latency before we even get to a point of having an idea what needs to happen. So, if I had to put an amount of time on it, I would say that each tree easily takes an hour or more currently to get finished.
Okay, cool. And you talked about handling emergencies like within, I forget if you said
24.
24 hours.
And hopefully much faster than that. They will be there as soon as they can.
Right. And then in terms of is there a, I'm sorry, I didn't read it super thoroughly before. But is there a term, something similar for just regular trees that are found to be, it's not an emergency, there's not a tree in the road, but somebody's got a tree that's
They respond to all
dangerous.
requests in 24 hours, but they get to the request based on my priority list, which we share on Google. It's this big shared sheet. And so they can see what the most active items are and what needs to happen, what status we have as far as the permitting goes, et cetera. It happens much quicker. We also use a really cool app called Land Glide. I don't know if you guys mess with that ever, but we use that to locate the trees as a group to make sure where the trees they're taking down are located. And that helps out a lot.
Cool. And is this something that if it was on member property, I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this question, but if it was on member property and a member wanted to have them deal with it, is there anything as far as being part of the association, this is within Sudden Valley, that they can not get a discount, but reach out through, I don't know. I know usually that there's a lot of steps for members to, if they've got a tree on the property.
We don't have anything negotiated for the private properties. That said, I don't know if Earthworks gives a better deal for people in the area just because they don't have to travel further. I couldn't tell you. That is always something we could talk about.
Okay. Yeah, it would just be cool if we're getting into this contract. As much as it's a hassle for Sudden Valley, it's a hassle for everybody. And tons of people have problem trees on their property. So it'd be cool to just get as much as we can from it. Thank you.
No problem.
All right. Any other questions?
Yeah, I was just going to point out, Linda's right. Like in UDR, there's this capital project code for UDR approved in, looks like June of 2019. It's still just hanging out. It was originally $16,991, and it says there's about $8,200 of unspent funds in that line item. I mean, you could redirect some of this expenditure to come to close that one out if you wanted to also.
Joel, there's specific trees with that. Susie, I'm going to send you something tomorrow because I know exactly what Joel's talking about, that's an open project yet in UDR.
Okay.
And it's probably some of your trees that are on your list.
Okay.
And I'll send it to you because it's like all these trees, it's like some were taken down, and being polite, I don't know what happened with the rest of them, but I'll send you a list tomorrow and we can maybe talk if you need to, or I can talk to Noel and explain what's going on, but I'll show you it.
Absolutely. Thank you.
I can also give her the UDR folder on that project code, which would have the paperwork.
Noel?
Going back to Joel, when he was asking about individual properties, if you do have a hazard tree, there are steps you can take to get that taken care of. Susie, do you want to?
If it's an imminent hazard tree, those can be taken down and you can notify the county afterward. If it's like truly a threat to someone's life, those trees can be taken down immediately. I hope that everybody in the valley knows that.
Right.
I don't think everyone does because when I was looking for houses, people said, "Oh, you can't cut any trees down. You can't do that." So I don't think that people do because people ask me tree questions, and I don't know. I don't know.
Send them
But,
my way. I'm happy to help.
Yeah, that's the
Absolutely. Thank you. So that is great to know because if you have the means to remove the tree, you can do it yourself. If it's a danger, it looks like it's going to fall on a house or fall in the road or fall on anything.
And we do always recommend professionals for the record.
Right. If you have the means. Yes. Yes. Okay. Yes. That's what I meant by the means. Thank you for clarifying that.
You do have to document. You have to take pictures of your tree. You have to take pictures of what you're doing and send it into the county and to the ACC. You can't just arbitrarily cut something down just because you think it's a hazard.
Yeah.
And make sure it's on your own property. That's important.
Yes, it is.
And we're more than happy to help you figure that out.
Yes, we are.
Super cool. Thank you, ladies.
Fine.
Hey, I wanted to let you know that I just wanted to compliment Susie and Jacob on this project. This is an example of two employees taking the initiative to fix a long-term problem and come up with a great solution. So I just wanted to say great work for that. And this is, we will see more of this, I believe, in the near future, all of our employees.
All right. Any other questions? I believe we can make a motion here then. I'll take a shot at this here. I move to approve the agreement for on-call consulting services with Earthworks Tree Services as presented with a maximum amount not to exceed the 2021 budgeted amount for tree removal.
Second.
All right. Any further discussion? We will call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Looks like that passes unanimously. All right. And we will then move on to the remote meeting procedures. This is something that I brought up. I had sent an email to the board. Thank you, Susie.
Bye.
Have a good night.
See you guys later.
This was something that I brought to the board, and it's kind of something I've been thinking about. And we're doing everything on Zoom, and the best means we have to providing the most members a collaborative experience and the ability to participate in our various committees or with the board is to be recording and putting our meetings onto YouTube like we do with the board and finance and long range planning, but doing with that with all of our committees. Basically, as it stands right now, the only way someone can participate in a lot of our committees is if they're available at the exact moment that the committee is meeting. And so, to participate in the community, you don't have to be on a committee. We get lots of people who email us weekly or, a couple times a month or something. They watch the committees, they send us feedback, those types of things. So live streaming all of our committee meetings is very simple on Zoom. John just has to push an extra button for us, basically. And so I think in the meantime, until we can write a formal policy, my my idea was just to make a simple motion that the board would like to live stream all of our association board and committee meetings to YouTube. And then maybe a second motion to refer some additional policies down to the document review committee again. And so, yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with this. And I think it's something simple that we can do, and it provides everyone the means to participate when their schedule allows it, which I think us board members, knowing all the meetings that we attend, know how valuable that type of flexibility can be. So I don't know if there's any discussion on the point.
You have
Steffi?
to make the motion first, right?
Oh, yeah, we can.
I mean, we can, yeah.
I'll make a motion then if you want to do that before discussing. Would you repeat that? Because it was, in summation for me.
Yeah, I can do, I think Glenn's got a motion here that we can use.
Oh, okay, good.
I move that the Sun Valley Community Association Board of Directors approve live streaming of all board and committee meetings to YouTube as an interim measure until a formal policy can be drafted regarding this topic.
Second.
Oh.
All right, any discussion? Steffi, do you have discussion on it?
Yes, I completely support this because I would rather people get the information directly from watching the videos than playing the telephone game or secondhand information or trying to search down minutes. I mean, I think it's great to be able to just play YouTube in the background, get caught up, and also very isolating that we can't have these meetings in person. So we don't need to isolate people further. And just seeing people, like I'm working and a lot of people aren't. So just seeing people and they're so happy to come to the doctor or the hospital or anything. It's like, I mean, people need that interaction. So I would say it's good. And I definitely think that we should have the information firsthand out there. There's no other way to put it out there as transparent. So I stand behind that decision.
Kim?
I agree with videoing our meetings. I was just curious if anyone knows how many committees and subcommittees we have. Does anyone have a number on those?
Could calculate it.
Well, and then the second part of that question was, if we're going to be filming all of our meetings, is it feasible calendar wise and staff wise? Just wanting to be thinking about who's going to be press and record on all these meetings. If there's a meeting every night of the week, is that going to be poor John that's going to be working every night? And did John sign up to work every night? I'm just looking at the logistics of this decision. Noelle said no, she's going to volunteer some night to press record.
Yeah, I've talked with Glenn a little bit about that over the last couple weeks and stuff. So it's definitely something, we do have to figure out a balance for everybody involved.
Yeah, we have John has been cross-training a number of our team, depending on the, which meeting it is. So we'll be able to certainly balance staff. I think that there will always be a challenge at times, depending on the committees, but, and really the subcommittee issue, like you said, there's a lot of number. I think if I'm correct, we're at 9 at this point of committees. That's without subcommittees, and that's your ad hoc committees. So it's significant. There's no doubt, but that's what we're trying to do, is to balance. And if there's no way staff can be two places at once, like John. So we're planning to be able to cover, and you may have noticed at the strategic planning one, Rachel took the lead on it. So we're building our capabilities to manage this.
Okay, thank you.
Justin?
Is it possible, or is it even appropriate for just to have the chair of whatever particular committee take charge of the recording? I mean, and maybe John or someone could just set out a step-by-step kind of cheat sheet to do it. Would that help?
In some ways, but I think, from the staff perspective, this is part of our role to support your efforts. So it's not, and I definitely appreciate everybody jumping in to volunteer. You guys are awesome about that. But we also want to be here for you, and we want to have you do your work. And running the meeting is, as you know, Justin, just in our last meeting, it's not always easy to think about all the details. So that's what we're here to do, is take the pressure off you. So we'll find a way to make sure we can do it for you.
Okay, thank you.
Linda?
I think the thing we need to remember, guys, we do these meetings because of the governor's proclamation. And in theory, we're supposed to go, as far as making some sort of policy on this, I would assume that we would go back to live meetings again rather than continue the Zoom meetings once we get out of the pandemic thing. I don't think phase 3 is going to take us there, but I thought the understanding was that we were just going to be doing these Zoom meetings until there was the proclamation that kind of eased things up from the governor. That's all. And that's what we're required to do, just that we meet. And, in theory, then we go back to finding all our little places over in the community center or over in the back room of El Agave or whatever for our different meetings.
Yeah, we definitely are going to need a policy that encompasses the full gamut of it. We may still utilize Zoom meetings in the future. It may be a productive use of resources, for some meetings, maybe not all of them, but some, so I wouldn't write it off completely, but I would expect the policy, that we refer to document review committee to be a bit more, a comprehensive kind of audio visual, because we're going to have to figure out how we record those things once we move back to in-person meetings. And as someone who set up cameras for long-range planning, it was not always the easiest process. And maybe we could look into like a fixed camera or something for specific rooms that could help us, more easily execute those types of things. Andrew?
Thanks. Yeah, I'll just offer a differing opinion, I suppose. As board members, I think we all signed up to have our meetings recorded, and we know that that's part of the responsibility. For committee members, I don't support the notion of recording every committee meeting and subcommittee meeting. Having an agenda posted in minutes, well, sure, but having them filmed and recorded, I tend to leave. I would lean towards the board to have our board meetings filmed, but not committee meetings. So those are some of the reasons why I would not be in favor of this. I've also already had some committee members say that they have no interest in being recorded at the subcommittee level, and they would actually not be involved anymore. So that's some feedback coming back from a large committee and committee members, longtime committee members, telling me that they would not be interested in continuing in that capacity should we begin recording every committee meeting and subcommittee. So for those reasons and others, I will be voting no for this. Thanks.
Do they have privacy concerns or?
Andrew, and what rationale did you offer, and what was the reasoning behind that they didn't want the meeting recorded?
Yeah, I'm getting feedback directly from committee members.
I heard that
with their concerns, and I'm trying to be respectful of what I'm hearing from the community.
That's not what I asked. I asked you specific questions, not that. I asked you what the privacy concerns were and what feedback you offered, because you had a conversation with the president about the rationale and transparency. So I'm wondering what you offered for information in return, because you were given some information.
I've already provided the reasons for why I'll be voting no, so I'd like to pass it over to anyone else who has any more questions. Thanks.
That's not helpful. I understand why I'm trying to get an open perspective. So I'm asking you what the privacy concerns were and what you offered as information back to them, because we were all privy to the conversation that the president had with you. So I asked a specific
Not interested in going
question.
down that path with you at the moment, Steffi. Thank you. Let's move on. Thank you.
Okay, well, for the sake of transparency, we will move on.
All right.
I'm entitled to my opinion, Steffi. I know it's not yours, and that's okay.
Absolutely. I'm asking you for clarification so I can have more information, and you're neglecting to give that. And you're also neglecting to share whether or not you passed on information that was given to you back to your committee and your subcommittee.
I'm
That's what
happy
I'm
to connect with
asking
you
you.
offline for any other questions you may have, Steffi. Thanks.
Well, I think that everyone would need to know this. That's what I think, because you're representing our community, and now you're representing Parks, Trails, and Committee, and Parks, Trails, and Recreation. And I feel like you're not doing that very well by shirking these questions. So I'm asking you.
All right, well, it appears he's not going to answer, so I'll move on to Noel.
Okay, so noted. Thank you, Mr. President. So noted that Andrew Entrican will not answer those questions. Thank you.
Noel?
I'm a little bit lost now, sorry. As far as committees being recorded, is that what we were talking about?
Yep.
Okay. So I know, like, for the ACC committee, we're not used to being recorded, and sometimes we talk about things personally or about certain things, and it would take a bit of a learning curve for us to be used to being recorded. I don't know. I mean,
I understand what you're saying.
do you? Does it make any sense?
Yeah, I do. What Noel is trying to tell you a little bit is that when ACC makes their decisions, they're sometimes talking about specific owners' property, whether they approve something or not, whether they discuss that. And then you're kind of violating a member's privacy when they're doing their business to talk about whether they approve work or not. I get what you're saying, girl. And as far as people objecting to being filmed, there was a prior, when we first started recording way back when, and that was just recording video, they wanted to do finance. And we actually had a treasurer that said that that he absolutely would not have his meetings videoed. And if they were, he would quit as treasurer. And it was a he, that's all I can say. But so he, lots of people have issues with, being videotaped.
Yeah. And sometimes we have to talk about uncomfortable things, or, we have to, I don't know. It's just, we don't want to air people's dirty laundry.
Well, if there's privacy issues, you have a closed session capabilities, I believe, at your disposal, and your meetings are open to the public. So they're not, anyone can go watch them. So why is it fair that someone who has the time to go at 10 a.m. to your meeting can go and get the dirty laundry as it's being stated, as opposed to someone watching it on film 3 hours or 8 hours later or 3 days later? I guess I just don't really see the difference, in my opinion. And I ran on transparency, And that is the most transparent process I can see. So Josh and Brian.
Yeah, I was going to say what you said, AJ. I mean, if you're allowed to go to these meetings in general, then, I mean, if there's sensitivity issues, then there should be a closed session or something. But I think this gives the opportunity for everyone to participate if they want to. You know, maybe I want to watch a Parks and Trails meeting, or, you know, maybe I want to see something else. But I don't think anyone should be afraid. And, you know, I know not everyone is as glamorous looking as I am, but you can turn your camera off during meetings. And I will be the first one to say, I don't want my meetings recorded or live streamed. I like doing creative stuff, and I feel a little, it's a little bit weird, but I'm going to get used to it, because I think it might give it an opportunity for other people to participate who might normally not participate. And I don't want to go down a weird road here, but we have to remember previous boards set up a camera in the dance barn to film members of our community. So, you know, that kind of stuff has happened before too. And all we're doing here is just asking all the committees to live stream their meetings. I'm up for it, and I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, I just wanted to, just agree with what AJ and Josh are saying. But also, it does bring up an important point. I think that if there are confidential matters that you guys are discussing in a public meeting, perhaps they should be discussed in closed session, which, adds another layer to your work, maybe, which is difficult. But perhaps if you are discussing privacy matters or private matters in a public meeting, they should be in closed session.
And ACC's, I think, probably the only committee I could see that would need to utilize that type of thing. I don't see any other committee needing to utilize a closed session, but the ACC does deal with some privacy stuff.
Well, and AJ, I had my hand raised, so I'm just going to jump in because no one had their hand raised. That's okay.
I can't see you.
I know, it's fine. I was just speaking out, but just to add to Brian's comment, that I'm thinking that if we're talking about things that we would be afraid to have on video, then we shouldn't be talking about it outside of what Noelle brought up with ACC and sensitive information. I definitely don't think we should be at EPC and be worried about what's being filmed. We need to keep it on the level and talk about the things we're supposed to talk about. And I think being on video keeps that accountable. So if anybody doesn't have a solid concern that they want to let us know about, if they're in witness protection or something like that, come and talk to us or whatever.
I don't think you can tell people that you're in witness protection.
Thanks, Kim.
Witness protection.
Kim, they can tell you, but then they have to kill you. so just come and tell me.
Noelle.
Going back to like our sensitive issues, we deal with individual property owners. We talk about them. We have to give their addresses and who they are, and so it kind of outs people, and it just, I want to respect their privacy, and I just, at least for the ACC portion of it, we deal with individuals, we say their names, we say the property, we say what's going on. And I just think that for us personally, our members deserve some sort of privacy in that sort of state issue.
I mean, if you guys took any actions on a specific property, it would have to be recorded in the minutes. So it's all going to be in there anyways, no matter what. And, a county permit for a building or anything that you would do on your property that requires a permit is public record. And I don't think our permitting process should be any different. in that regards.
That's-
Otherwise,
Yeah.
people can't, don't know what's happening, in their neighborhood.
Yeah. But even though, we still try to keep separate, people's names and their properties. Yeah, you can connect them, but we still want to provide members some sort of privacy when we talk about, their requests. When we have our minutes, we don't say such and so or so and so at X address. We keep the addresses and the names separate for a reason.
Do you have to use names at all?
We have, no, well, we have when we're talking about them, or if they come to our meeting. But even in our minutes, I try to keep, if we have an attendant, somebody, a member who's attending who has something on our agenda, I don't want to attach, we have to say their name, but I don't want to attach their name to their address. I want to just keep some sort of, again, the privacy, if somebody really wants to go say, oh, hey, this person, I'm going to look them up and find out where their address is. It's just some, a separation. And I don't know.
That brings up a thought. We do that all the time when we go to our board meetings. People will stand up and say their name and where they live because we ask people to say their address.
Right.
And it's being recorded. So
they're volunteering.
You can look up anyone's address.
So they're volunteering that.
So are these people by making a request?
Saying who they are, and they're stating their issue. Whereas when it's something that they're requesting for their property, a lot of times that can become emotional or personal. And I don't know, I'm privacy. But then again, I'm a healthcare professional. And so I'm like the HIPAA thing. And it's like, it's all about privacy and keeping things separate. Granted, I wouldn't mind talking about things and being recorded, but when it comes to people's addresses and their names, that's where I start having the issue.
I would also just throw out there that, oh my God, I just lost my train. Go ahead, Justin. I'll think about it.
I'll go slow. On the flip side of it, I think it's also important that maybe these people's neighbors know what's being requested to be done, what they're wanting to do, maybe what beautiful tree might be getting knocked down or they're asking for. So I think that's important for their neighbors to maybe have that information too. That's my 2 cents.
Right. And in our agendas, all the addresses are listed.
Okay.
And when big things like that are happening, we also encourage our members to talk to their neighbors.
Okay, good.
Never possible.
I would say too, there is kind of this unknown of what ACC does and how they operate, and having it open like that would shed light on the processes that people actually have to go through, and I contend it would make your guys' job easier because people would be more aware.
That's very good point, AJ. It would let people understand what our jobs are and what's required, and make ACC a little less villainous.
Well, I have an unpopular thought. Is that a lot of people who have lived here for a while say things like, people would file complaints and then the ACC would be used against them. And these stories get turned into a fishtail, if I could say, maybe a little. And I think the transparency and all of this is listed. I mean, they would see none of this backdoor bullying goes on, and B, you can't do it if it's all listed and in the open. And I get what you're saying about the HIPAA versus, civilian life, but they can look us up in 2 minutes.
Right. I can look
I
anybody up.
mean, right. Like 2 minutes, literally. So, yeah.
Yeah.
But I like the thought of, people getting to know ACC more and not being afraid and all these like urban legends or what have you. And some of it, I'm not saying some of it didn't happen, but
It totally did. But yes, because I totally understand that. And in talking about this, it's like making me understand, oh yeah, it would make us more transparent, and it would make us look more friendly, like I've been trying to do for the last 4 years, because we're the kinder ACC, we're not up to
punitive.
Yeah, we want to, we want to embrace our community, but we do have our policies, but at the same time, we want to help our community. If we can't do something, we've also wanted to tell them what they could do, not just an arbitrary no.
Well, it also might, in that vein of the ACC reputation, if meetings are filmed, then people can see policies and decisions being made equitably versus the reputation that you all are fair to some people and unfair to others. So that would probably help with that.
At this point in time. Well, and that's one reason why, like when Rich Hart was here too, we made meetings. All of our meetings were always at 9 o'clock in the morning, but the second meeting of the month is at 6 p.m. so that members could actually hopefully attend. But recording would probably be even better to bring more people into our fold and see us as who we really are.
All right. Is there any other discussion on the issue?
Were we going to go to the second motion for referring
We'll have to vote on this one first because it's not an amendment to a motion. So we'll have to close this one out first. So we'll call the question. The motion on the table was to move that the Sudden Valley Community Association Board of Directors approve live streaming of all board and committee meetings to YouTube as an interim measure until a formal policy can be drafted regarding this topic. All those in favor? Any opposed? Steffi, would you vote? We can't see you.
I said in favor.
Okay. It's like.
And so we had one opposed?
One opposed, yes.
Okay, so Andrew's opposed and Noel, you were for?
Okay, so then the second kind of portion of the discussion would be to kind of refer to the document review committee. I think we'd probably want to look at both a remote and, in-person meeting recording procedures and policy, essentially. Does anyone kind of disagree with that? Would we want to we could just focus on a remote policy for now, or we could focus on kind of a holistic policy that may encompass both methods that we can utilize post-pandemic, even if we deem Zoom meetings are efficient for any purposes.
Then you may want to look at the bylaws too, AJ, because it doesn't say anything about meetings being videoed or any, you know what I mean? So or document review should look at that when they're considering a policy.
Yeah, I was about to ask what's already out there, if anything. So.
I guess I'm confused, Linda, by that, because if it's not in the bylaws, then we're okay. And we didn't have an issue with it when we created it under the governor's proclamation, so I'm lost. Help me make the connection what you're saying.
What I'm saying is there's nothing in the bylaws. There's requirements for committees, for all committees. And there's nothing in there that says they have to be videotaped or anything else, just that the board meets at this time and sets up their meetings. Finance does this, that if you're not, most meetings, you have to meet at least 4 times a year. Doesn't say anything about videotaping them. That's what I'm getting at.
Okay.
And you can't have a policy for something if the bylaws say not required.
It doesn't say it's not required. It doesn't mention it whatsoever. And then the governor's proclamation. Right. So the fact that it doesn't mention it.
Yeah, we can definitely have a policy that further restricts.
If you're going to make it a policy forever and ever, then it should be in the bylaws.
Oh, I thought, okay, so that's the part I was missing from you, Linda. Sorry.
Okay, I just want everybody to look at what the bylaws say, because I know they don't say, that's all.
Okay, well, my piece was I was going to say that we shouldn't make it indefinitely trying to make a holistic blended one until we know what the future actually is looking like. I know we're going to 3rd phase, but we certainly did go 1 step forward and 3 steps back a year ago. Granted, we have a vaccine now. Yes, I believe in vaccines. Just for the sake of arguments, right? Let's say that that's going to help us if anybody doesn't believe in that. But if it doesn't, then certainly we could be going back and forth. So I would just like to not try and plan for 16 scenarios when we don't know any of them. I would just like to focus on right now, my opinion.
Okay. We do have a current audio video policy that looks like 2017. It's basically just a block of text. I haven't read through it in its entirety here, obviously, as we're in a meeting, but it is there. So we do have something that we can kind of work off of initially, at least. One of the things we need with our policies is to establish a kind of a format that all policies will be following and in, so that they're easy to read and understand a bit than just like blocks of text. I would be fine at this point for we could just develop a policy for Zoom recorded meetings. And then at a later date, we can discuss as we start to transition, or before we start to transition to in-person, we can readdress an in-person audio-visual policy at that point in time. That's more simple. That sounded like what you were saying, Steffi. Maybe. I think that's what she was saying. Is there
Yes, that's exactly.
Any further discussion on that? Okay, well, I'll do a motion then. I move to refer to the document review committee for recommending a Zoom remote meeting procedures policy.
Second.
Beat you to it. Okay. Any further discussion on that?
Did you want to add for committees and subcommittees to that motion? And also possibly in light of the governor's stay-at-home orders during the COVID-19 pandemic. Did you want to clarify that so that it's stated why we're doing this in the motion? Is that necessary?
I don't know if it's necessary, to be honest, but I'm not 100%
I
sure.
mean, yeah, if it's not necessary, but I just, sometimes I like a little context in things so that when someone's reading it in the future, it's like, why are they doing this?
Oh, I think we all remember.
I was gonna say, I think AJ, Andrew, Steffi, and Josh all are well aware of what went on when we made a policy or a resolution or something. Somebody help me here, I don't remember. When this all started with the governor and we put dates on it and then we renewed it because this thing kept on going like the Energizer Bunny, and here we are at the anniversary date a year later. But I think there's a policy we already have about holding these Zoom meetings, at least for the board. We need to go back and look because we did a follow-up. Andrew, am I dreaming?
There's a policy that says we'll just hold our meetings via Zoom due to the proclamation or something.
Yeah.
Well, we
But
kept
I'm saying we
renewing
have
the.
that part of the puzzle.
Well, and do we want to address giving us the flexibility for Zoom meetings in the future? Because they
Oh
are.
my gosh.
I think if we have just a Zoom policy that allows us, if the board decides we're going to have this meeting via Zoom because of this reason or whatever, and we feel like that's the best course of action, then we have a policy for Zoom meetings. And then, in the future, not to inundate you with policy after policy after policy here, we can bring something forward at a later date before we get going on in-person ones to kind of update our current policy, and get it in line with today's day and age and what we would like to do,
Okay, well, yeah, definitely welcome any further input by email if anyone's got any ideas before we meet on it.
All right. Well, is there any further discussion on that motion? So I will call the question then. The motion on the, I don't remember it now. Motion on the table is move to refer to the document review committee for recommendation to the board a Zoom remote meeting procedures policy for Sun Valley Association. All right. What was that, Justin?
Should we maybe not say Zoom specifically just because it's kind of a brand?
Right. I'd rather go to Microsoft Teams, but I'm trying not to say anything.
Or we can just the motion can just be remote meeting procedures policy.
Yes.
Does everyone understand that slight friendly amendment?
Would you like it to make it official, AJ?
I think we're good. I don't want to say it again. All right, let's vote then. All those in favor of referring this to document review.
Oh, I don't even need it to go there.
Any opposed? Steffi, you're not muted.
I know. I'm losing my mind.
If you voted yes, Steffi, it passed unanimously. All right. I think at this point in time, then, that is the last thing we have on the agenda. We'll move to last round of property owner comments then before we adjourn.
Okay. Looks like we've got 5 hearty souls in our audience here. If anybody would like to step up to the virtual mic for property owners' comments, just use the raise hand feature in Zoom and I'll bring you over.
John, you're so good at that. I would totally make a comment if I was in the panel, the attendees right
I know
now.
his voice is very inviting.
He has the radio voice going on, the radio commentator for sure.
The evening soft rock.
Looks like we do have a hand raised here. I'm going to go ahead and bring Ann over. Ann, if you could give your name and address when I bring you over. All right, I've got you in the meeting.
Hi, Ann Cope, 52 Louise View Drive. I have a couple comments about recording the committee meetings. We really want an informed community, and that's something that we've really had to fight to get information to the community. So having the meetings, all meetings available to the community is really important, because there has been so much shaming of the community for not attending, for not watching, get off your duff, why aren't you volunteering, all of that. And people do not, as AJ said, people do not have to be in a committee to be involved. And lots of people who pay attention are not committee members, but they have a lot of valuable input. Also, the small committees can be a little unwelcoming sometimes to attend, to walk, they're in small rooms. And so to walk in can be a little, not always a friendly environment for people. And to hear Andrew say that people are willing to quit over being recorded, how do you think they respond when somebody actually comes in person to watch a meeting? That's a really, that's a horrible attitude, number one, to use that as a form of, whatever. Let's see. Also, and Linda can answer this, but board meetings don't have to be videotaped. That's not in the bylaws. So is that right, Linda?
That's correct.
So, I mean,
that's why I'm just saying, if we're gonna, that's why I just, in creating this policy, they should look at what the requirements are of committee and board meetings in general that are in the bylaws.
I just think it's a hugely valuable policy that we have right now, written, unwritten, for the board meetings to be videotaped so that people have access to them. It would be equally valuable for other meetings. And if you go back to some of the minutes for some of the committees, there's zero information in those. You know, I can go to some of those old, whatever, parks, communicate, whatever, any meeting, except the board meetings and financial maybe, but some of those minutes are just, there's zero information. So you have no idea. And again, we want people involved. We want people to know what's happening. And we don't want it to be a secret. And we don't want committee members saying, well, if it's going to be taped, I'm quitting. That's not acceptable at all. So I just think it's a really good policy to have. And it's valuable, and it's especially important for transparency. So that's all. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Ann.
I'll just add one thing to that real quick. You know, it's like, big thing that drove me to bring this forward was like, how does the community vet this stuff? The committee writes the agenda, the committee has the discussion, the committee writes the meeting minutes, the committee approves the minutes. And if there's no record for the community to even look at those and say that that's an accurate assessment of what was discussed and decided there, you know, it's a difficult thing for the community to be able to participate. Thank you, Ann.
Anybody else for property owners' comments? Doesn't look like it, Mr. President.
All right. Well, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn at 9:16 p.m.
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Have a great
Thanks,
night.
John. Thanks, staff. Thanks, everyone.
Have a good one, everybody.